Sometimes it's not the grand gestures that reveal someone's true heart. It's the quiet ones. A single choice can turn shame into dignity, silence a room, and prove that kindness outshines wealth every time. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Asterisk asterisk. The restaurant's dim lights flickered against polished glasses. Laughter and clinking forks humming like background music. She shifted nervously in her seat, tugging her faded cardigan tighter, as if it could hide the scuffed edges of her old shoes. "I'm sorry." Her voice cracked, barely audible. "I didn't realize this place was so fancy. I should have worn something better. These shoes they're embarrassing." For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Her date, Michael Carter, a 39-year-old CEO and single father, the kind of man who usually made people stammer when he walked into a room looked down. His tailored suit, silver tie-pin, and glinting cufflinks screamed power and wealth. But his gaze stopped at her shoes, worn thin at the soles, the leather frayed. The waiter paused mid-pour, sensing tension. The couple at the next table whispered, eyes darting toward them. A tiny storm of judgment swirled around her, pressing down. She wanted to shrink, disappear. But then Michael did something that silenced the room. He calmly slipped the expensive Rolex from his wrist, the watch worth more than her monthly rent, and placed it gently on the table. "These?" he said, tapping the watch once before pushing it aside. "They don't matter. Not tonight. Not ever." Her breath hitched. "Michael." He leaned forward, voice steady yet threaded with warmth. "You apologize for your shoes, Emily, but let me tell you something. Your shoes don't embarrass me. You don't embarrass me. Do you know how many people walk into this room dripping in designer clothes, yet leave empty, cold, shallow?" His eyes softened. "You came here as yourself. And that's worth more to me than anything money could ever buy." Emily blinked. Rapidly, tears threatening. She'd been bracing for mockery, for pity, maybe even for him to excuse himself and vanish like others had. Instead, his words carved through the noise of the restaurant like truth no one could deny. The waiter stepped back, discreetly hiding a smile. The couple at the next table looked down, ashamed of their own whispers. "Michael," Emily whispered. Again, but this time her voice wasn't cracked with shame, it trembled with disbelief. He smiled faintly, resting his arms on the table, his presence steady and grounding. "Let's start again. No apologies, just dinner, just us." And for the first time that night, Emily allowed herself to breathe. Asterisk asterisk. Emily sat across from Michael, still stunned, her fingers hovering over the edge of the tablecloth as if afraid the moment would vanish if she moved. The weight of his gesture slipping off that watch so casually still lingered in the air. She swallowed, voice soft. "You don't understand, Michael. I almost didn't come tonight. I thought you'd take one look at me and realize I don't belong in your world." Michael tilted his head, studying her as if he were reading between the words. "Whose world are we talking about, Emily? Because if you mean this restaurant, this performance of wealth and status, trust me, I don't belong here either. I just learned to play the game." She frowned, confused. "But you're a CEO, yeah." He gave a humorless chuckle. "But that title doesn't erase where I came from. Do you know what my first job was?" Emily shook her head. "I scrubbed floors in a mechanic shop. I was 15. My dad had just walked out, and my mom was holding down 2 jobs to keep food on the table. My shoes weren't just old, they had holes so big I had to tape cardboard to the bottom just to make them last through the winter." His eyes darkened, but his voice remained steady. "So don't apologize to me for your shoes. They tell me you've walked through storms, Emily, and you're still standing." The words hit her harder than any compliment could. She felt her chest tighten, not from embarrassment anymore, but from something deeper, recognition, connection. Emily leaned forward. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want you to think I'm here to judge you, he said simply. I asked you out because I see something in you. And if you can't see it yet, I'll wait until you do. Her lips parted, but before she could answer, the clatter of silverware from across the room drew both their attention. A man in his 50s, clearly intoxicated, stood up from his table. His suit jacket hung loosely, his tie undone, and his words slurred as he barked toward a waiter. The steak is raw. Do you think I'm paying top dollar for garbage? He shoved the plate off the table, sending it crashing to the floor. The entire restaurant tensed. The waiter, a boy no older than 19, flinched as the man grabbed his collar. Do you know who I am? I could buy this place with pocket change. Emily's hand instinctively reached for her purse, eyes wide. Michael, do something, but Michael was already moving. He rose from his chair with a quiet authority that made heads turn. He didn't shout, didn't storm. He simply walked over, his presence enough to ripple silence through the chaos. Sir, Michael said evenly, stepping between the man and the trembling waiter. You need to let him go. The drunk man sneered. And who the hell are you? Michael's jaw tightened. Someone who doesn't tolerate bullies. His voice carried the kind of weight that left no room for argument. The man scoffed, his grip loosening on the waiter's collar. This is none of your business. Now it is. Michael glanced at the waiter, giving him a small nod. Go. Take a break. The boy scrambled away, relief etched across his face. Emily watched, her heart racing. Michael didn't raise his voice, but the entire restaurant hung on his every word. The drunk man tried to puff up his chest, but it was clear his bravado was cracking. You don't scare me. Michael stepped closer, lowering his voice so only the man could hear, but Emily caught the words anyway. You're embarrassing yourself. And if you don't walk out right now, you'll regret it. Not because of me, but because your daughter is sitting right there. The man froze. Emily's gaze followed to a corner table where a young woman, maybe 20, sat with her face buried in her hands. Mortified, the color drained from the man's face. His shoulders sagged, the fight evaporating. Without another word, he stumbled back, muttered something incoherent, and left the restaurant in silence. The daughter remained for a moment, then slowly lifted her head. Her eyes met Michael's, tears brimming. She whispered, "Thank you." Michael only nodded, then returned to his seat as if nothing had happened. The restaurant buzz gradually resumed, though hushed, every pair of eyes still stealing glances at him. Emily stared at him, her chest tight with emotion she couldn't name. You didn't even know her. Why would you put yourself in the middle of that? Michael exhaled, adjusting the cuff of his sleeve. Because kindness doesn't stop at the people you know. That girl will remember tonight for the rest of her life. Not because her father humiliated her, but because someone stepped in when she couldn't. Emily's throat burned. She blinked back tears, her voice trembling. You keep doing that, making me feel like maybe I don't have to apologize for existing. Michael's gaze locked on hers, steady and unyielding. You never did, Emily. You never will. The words sank into her bones like warmth after years of cold. For the rest of dinner, conversation flowed easily. Michael asked about her dreams, her childhood, the small details no one had cared to notice before. Emily found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. And when the bill arrived, Michael didn't just toss his credit card onto the tray. He placed the Rolex on top of it. Emily's eyes widened. Michael, what are you doing? Leaving it, he said simply. For the waiter. He needs it. More than I ever will. Her hand flew to her mouth, shock flooding her. That watch is Michael, that's insane. You can't just, he leaned back, his expression calm, almost serene. Watches, cars, suits, they're just things. I'd trade them all for one night like this. For someone who sees me as more than a title, Her chest swelled with emotions she couldn't contain. She had walked into the restaurant expecting shame, humiliation, maybe even rejection. Instead, she found herself sitting across from a man who stripped away the illusions of wealth and status and gave her something no one else had, dignity. And though she didn't say it out loud, Emily knew this night would change her forever. The night air was sharp when they stepped out of the restaurant. The city lights glowed in streaks of gold and red. Taxis buzzing past, voices drifting from late-night cafes. Emily clutched her coat tightly, not because of the cold, but because of the storm of emotions raging inside her. Michael walked beside her, his stride calm, almost protective, as if the world couldn't touch her while he was there. But she couldn't hold it in anymore. "Michael," she whispered, stopping on the sidewalk. He turned, brows slightly furrowed. She shook her head, eyes wet. "Why me? You could be with anyone. Women who look perfect, who belong in places like that. And here I am, apologizing for shoes, for existing in your world." Michael didn't speak right away. Instead, he stepped closer until she could see the reflection of the streetlight in his eyes. "You think I want perfect?" His voice was steady, but there was an edge of rawness. "Do you know what perfect looks like to me, Emily? It's someone who doesn't hide their scars. Someone who shows up even when they're afraid they're not enough. Someone who apologizes for old shoes, but doesn't realize those shoes carry a story of survival." Her breath hitched. He continued, voice lower now, almost breaking. "Do you know what I see when I look at you? I see strength. I see a woman who hasn't had it easy, but still carries herself with quiet dignity. You call that imperfection? I call that rare." Emily's throat burned as the tears she'd been holding back spilled freely. "I don't feel strong, Michael. Half the time I feel like I'm just holding myself together with string." Michael reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded photo creases worn from years of being opened and closed. He handed it to her. Emily's eyes widened when she saw it. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, with pigtails and the brightest smile. "She's my daughter," he said softly. "Sophia. She's the reason I fight through the nonsense, the reason I work like I do. She lost her mother when she was 6. And for a long time I thought I had to build walls, pretend I was untouchable, so she wouldn't see me break." His voice cracked for the first time. "But do you know what that did? It made me feel more alone than I ever have in my life." Emily looked up at him, stunned by the vulnerability in his eyes. He continued, "Tonight, when you sat across from me in those old shoes, apologizing, I realized something. I don't want someone who hides behind perfection. I want someone real. Someone who can sit at a table with me and be exactly who they are. Because that's the kind of person I want my daughter to learn from." Emily's tears fell freely now. "Michael." But before she could say more, a voice interrupted. "Mr. Carter?" They turned to see the young waiter from the restaurant running toward them, still in his uniform. He stopped, panting, holding something out in his hand. "Rolex. I can't take this," he stammered. "It's too much. I'll get fired if they think I stole it. Please take it back." Michael smiled faintly, shaking his head. "Keep it. Sell it, trade it, whatever you need to do. Use it to start over." The boy's eyes widened. "But why?" "Because someone once gave me a chance when I thought I had nothing," Michael said. "Now it's my turn." The boy's hands trembled as he clutched the watch, tears filling his eyes. "Thank you. I thank you." He turned and hurried off, his shoulders straighter, as if hope had been stitched into his spine. Emily watched in silence, her chest tight. She had never seen generosity so raw, so uncalculated. Michael turned back to her, his expression soft. "See, Emily? That's the world I want to live in. Not one of appearances, but one of second chances." Her voice shook. "And you think I belong in that world?" He reached for her hand, his grip warm and certain. No, I don't think, I know. For a long moment, they stood there, the city blurring around them. Emily felt the weight of years of shame and doubt begin to lift, replaced by something terrifying but beautiful, the possibility of being enough, exactly as she was. But the night wasn't finished with them. A sleek black car pulled up at the curb. The window rolled down, and a woman's voice called out, "Michael!" Emily stiffened. A tall, elegant woman stepped out, dressed in a designer gown, every detail perfect. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she approached, her expression sharp. "Who's this?" she demanded, her eyes sweeping over Emily's faded cardigan, her scuffed shoes. Michael's jaw tightened. "This is Emily." The woman's laugh was cold. "Really, Michael? You're a CEO. You sit on boards with billionaires. And you're parading around with this?" Her eyes flicked dismissively toward Emily. "She doesn't belong in your world." The words sliced through Emily like glass. For a moment, the old shame rose up again, threatening to crush her. But then Michael's hand tightened around hers. "Don't," he said firmly, his voice carrying a weight that silenced even the city noise. "Don't ever talk about her like that. Emily doesn't need to belong to my world. My world needs someone like her." The woman's face hardened, but she said nothing. She turned sharply, heels clicking back toward the car, and drove off without another word. Emily stood frozen, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She looked up at Michael, disbelief and gratitude flooding her. "You defended me." In front of her, Michael's gaze softened. "I'll defend you in front of anyone, Emily, because you're worth it." Her tears came again, but this time they weren't born of shame. They were born of relief, of hope, of the quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to apologize for existing anymore. They walked in silence for a while, their hands still entwined. Emily felt lighter, as though every step in her old shoes carried her into a new life. When they reached the corner, Michael stopped. "Emily," he said, his voice low, "you don't need to change to fit into my life. But if you let me, I'll spend every day proving that you already fit." Her heart surged. For the first time in years, she believed it. And as the city pulsed around them, the story of two people, one who had everything, one who thought she had nothing, began to write itself. Not in luxury restaurants, not in boardrooms or ballrooms, but in the quiet, undeniable truth of kindness, courage, and love that refused to measure worth in dollars. Emily looked at him, tears glistening, and whispered, "Then let's start from here." Michael smiled, the kind of smile that made the noise of the city fade into nothing. And together, they walked forward.